Well, it's interesting because until we spend more time looking at the metrics, and that's something for me that was some kind of a revelation because uh, initially we entered this arena trying to minimize quantification. We try to create some kind of a balance between quantity and quality because the predominance of quantity and the preoccupation with mathematical modeling threw away what you might call the soft stuff, the voice of the stakeholder, like the voice of a mother of a child with special needs. That is not captured by quantitative models. It can never be captured. Her experience, her emotions with a child are only captured if you bring her to the table, you see, and you hear her voice and how she influences the, the, the evolution of the discourse. So now what I'm saying is that before the metrics, I was able to appreciate that very much, that we enable people fundamentally to change their minds, to abandon their ideas in favor of ideas of others, and that's what consensus also means, and to do that gradually by successive approximations. We don't do it, we don't tell them, now change your mind. They change it because they hear the diversity of viewpoints and they are asked to make judgments of priority. And the reason they are asked to make judgments of priority is because we cannot do everything instantaneously. And that's why ephemeralization is very important, because without the capacity to be ephemeral, they can always say to you, well, I mean, these are not the priorities a year from now, and we know that. So we do it at this point in time where you are at. We have all these ideas, but we know that we cannot immediately start doing everything simultaneously or concurrently. So we want you as a group of stakeholders to make some judgments of priority. So when we force them, they generate ideas originally, not knowing what is salient and what is not. But then we put them into the space of now you have to make some judgments. You know, there are 64. We cannot do all 64s beginning next month, but we might do a subset. Now, what is a subset? So that's where the reduction starts. The reduction starts by asking them to make saliency judgments. And as we know, the incredible thing is, and that's why sometimes people say, what happens with the rest? Well, they're there. We acknowledge them. We don't discard them. And they can come back at a later point in time. But at this point in time, at this level of at this point of the situational complexity, we make some judgments of what is high priority for implementation in the next year or the next 2 years or whatever, 3 years, it can be that. We know, however, that what is the high priority now will not be later, but a simple reason that if we even implement those 10, 15, everything will change. So we have to revisit it to discover the new priorities. And that's the point, as you clearly have told me, that they don't like that. They don't like the fact that it's not, that it's dynamic. It's a balance, it's a dynamic balance. It's not something that you come up with and you freeze it, because if you freeze it, you make a great big mistake, and nobody understands that. So what happens with the reduction? The reduction happens initially with successive iterations and approximations of saliency judgments. So we reduce from 64, we come to about 20 because we say keep voting. Now, the voting is not the point about the process, which is powerful, is you don't ask them to vote without helping them get a deeper understanding. And this is what people don't, I mean, we have learned that when you start, everybody thinks they know everything, everybody thinks they understand everything, and they don't. In fact, as you know, we start with clarification. We start to say, all right, we have 60 ideas, you clarify, clarify. Then when we go to ask them to explore their similarity, suddenly what was crystal clear before, because it was clarified, they ask the question, what do you mean? What do you mean? So here we are asking them again the relational judgments, which is really why we call it the law of requisite meaning, which we attribute to Charles Saunders Peirce, the American philosopher, who actually claimed that you don't understand things unless you explore relationships. The relationships help people get a deeper understanding. So the way we play the process, we generate, we ask them to vote. Every time they vote, priority, they make relational judgments individually. Then we say, now you're going to talk about making similarity relations collectively. So they learn, they explore, they get deeper and deeper and deeper. And then as they get deeper, they abandon their ideas. I mean, we have cases, as you know, people come in as, they say, 5 ideas of their own. And if you walk out, they have abandoned all of them. In fact, when with George Mason, we did experiments, and many people, I mean, after all, 64, but we end up with 20, and we have 20 people, let's say everybody gave 5 ideas, they have, some of them have given up all of their ideas on the basis of saliency judgment. They say, my idea is, it's a good idea, but it's not priority right now. So that's the first thing we do, and we eliminate, 80%. 80, by the end of when we have the priority, we have, 40 ideas have been not abandoned, but judged as not being of high saliency at this point in time. And then we provide them the capacity to basically do the what we call the systems thinking that most people don't do, and to manage to identify the leverage, which is not the same thing as saliency. Saliency is a different relationship. Leverage is a different relationship. So they end up with a subset of high saliency and knowing also the leverage for each one of those. So that's a significant, no other process can do that, by the way, thoroughly and systematically and systemically. They cannot do it. We are the only ones that can do that. I mean, collectively are. And yet, unfortunately, which is very important right now, and I mean, I remember Warfield used to tell me that what we are doing is so important that someday, Warfield, in his vision, said someday the U.S. Congress will be doing that. And he was right. I mean, they talk and they pontificate the format of standing and talking. I'm not saying that this is irrelevant, but imagine that they could also couple that with some more discipline. A process imposes the discipline. And there's another thing that very important about our process is you see what happens, and now I'm going to talk physics. The world of physics is mathematized, and of course, it's about physical phenomena, and it also it's a phenomena that you construct theories that can be objective. Everybody agrees. It's sort of the universality and the eternality. It's universal and eternal. We are sensitive to realize that this is stupid to do when it comes to human phenomena or social phenomena. Now, we, however, borrow from the world of physics the capacity of the digitizing the language. That's what we essentially do. We give them the opportunity to articulate their idea with one line. So we say your idea and don't elaborate it in pages because nobody will understand it. But we're going to give it a number and we put it in a space, in a language space. So we have all these points which are numbered ideas. They work, and we put them in a digitized space, and we enable them in that space to work in that space with an environment which is helping them to be surrounded by those ideas. In other words, the space includes the numbers that are on the space, so they are surrounded by that. That's what we call the cybernetic embedding. That's the meaning of. So they are now embedded in a space which is digitized. They can refer to their ideas efficiently with numbers, as opposed to reading it, you see, or to giving a 2 hours or half an hour, say 10 minutes speech. Nobody will do it. So you say number 55 and number 22. Look at them. And this creates a learning environment. It's a learning environment. And because it's a learning environment, it enables them to be efficient, to make saliency judgments efficiently in a digitized space, and then ultimately to, in that space, to do systems thinking by exploring the leverage. So they walk out of this experience, and that's why they walk out of the experience. They have been asked to voice their experience. They have been authenticated because nobody oppressed them. We have liberated them. Usually, we don't let other people tell them what they mean. You know, they go to meetings and somebody, that's what I have, I'll talk to you. I mean, somebody talks and says, you mean that? And the person is scared, you know. Yeah, I mean that because, I mean, you know, he's a professor and I'm just, I mean, the hierarchical perspective. So we ultimately enable them to work in that digital space, communicate effectively and efficiently with numbers, uh, converge to a subset of high priority, and ultimately for this set to determine the effectiveness of every priority. And that's non trivial, you see.